Hey everyone, this is Josh with Wright Piano TV. Today, the video is in response to Dave's question about how to learn a new piece. This is a commonly asked question and something which I've tried to really master in my own playing. I think to be able to really learn a piece effectively takes a lot of planning and a lot of organization. Today we're just going to explore a few of those options so that you can maximize your efficiency. There's nothing worse than just feeling like you're not making progress when you're learning a piece. And through a few of these methods, I've seen a lot of my students and myself greatly speed up that process of learning a piece and learning it with quality. I think one of the biggest mistakes is to learn a piece sloppy and then to have to go back and fix everything afterwards. And so today I'm just going to demonstrate with a little 3-line piece. It's the Chopin Prelude No. 7. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead. According to how hard your piece is, you may want to just sight read through it the first time to get a feel for it. If you're learning a really hard 20th century piece, that may not be the best idea. But a lot of times at the level where I'm at right now, my teacher usually has me just learn an entire piece and bring it to her already in full tempo the next week. And so that could be a movement of a sonata or whatever. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate with that approach as if we have to learn the entire piece. If your teacher is just giving you like a half a page or 1 page to do in a week, you can take these concepts and apply them to that one assignment. I'm just going to apply it to this whole piece because this piece is so short. But maybe I'll just go ahead and just play through this really quick. So, simple enough. How could we go about learning a piece like this, or any piece really? How can we organize it? First thing I always like to do is I like to find big sections in the piece. This one is pretty basic. I'd maybe do each little group of two ideas. So maybe that would be my first little section, and then the next section, the end of section 2, section 3, and then so that'd be section 4. If you're in a sonata and you have sonata form with the exposition, the development, and then the recap, I'd probably divide that exposition up into maybe 3 or 4 different parts, and then the development into a couple parts depending on if it's a long one or a short one. And then the recap, the same as the exposition. You can do those really big sections, but it might get a little bit frustrating to do it that way. Okay, so now that we've divided our piece into big sections, we've got to organize it down into little places to remember. And I like to call these starting places. Okay, so I would go through, in this piece it's really simple, then I would divide it into the one little group. So this would be, within section 1, this would be the first group. Okay, that would be a group of notes that I would work on by itself. And then this would be the next part. And then I would practice those to put them together. One of the greatest ways to learn something quickly is to work backwards. And I like to work backwards by those starting places. Starting places can be as big as a few lines. I would never go above maybe 2 lines with a starting place. And they can be as small as 1 measure. But what I like to do is I like to take it from the end and work backwards by those little sections. Okay, so for instance, I would just take this section, and I always like to work right hand, left hand, then hands together. So I would just take this last section until it was perfect. Working in a slow tempo, even if you're in a fast piece, always working slow to fast is completely key to learning a piece well. So I would take right hand, left hand together from the last starting place to the end of the piece. Until that's absolutely perfect. And then I do left hand. Until that was perfect. That might take 20 minutes to get those good. It may take more than that, depending on how difficult your piece is. And then I would put it hands together until it's perfect. The reason I like to work backwards is because you always have that end. You always have the completion of the piece. So many students like to work from the beginning. And how many times have each of us, I would ask you if you're a piano student, have you ever done this? Have you worked from the beginning of the piece and your first few lines are just as solid as can be, they're perfect, and then the piece starts to fall apart as you go. So you're train wrecking by the end of the piece and you're embarrassed to look at your teacher afterwards. That has happened to me quite a few times, and I've had to learn from that mistake. So I always start from the end, and I work backwards like this. So then I would go to this next one, just until that's absolutely perfect. I don't go clear to the end. I just do that little starting place. And then I would do left hand. Once that is perfect, then I add the two together. Depending on how hard it is, I may go back through and add both of them together, right hand, left hand, hands together. If you've got them perfect and it's not too difficult of a piece, just put them together the first time, hands together. So I would do that for the entire section. I wouldn't add stuff from like section 2 into section 3. I would always just divide it into those bigger sections, and those sections can be, a page, 2 pages, whatever they might be. And then within those big sections, you have those little sections of like 1 to 2 lines, and you work backwards throughout that entire section, adding as you go along, maybe perfect a line, and then perfect the next line, then put those two together. And then I'd work the next 2 lines, put those together, then put that whole block of 4 lines together. Hopefully that's making sense. If anyone has questions, just email me. But I like to do that because it helps keep my practice efficient, helps me keep focused, because it's so easy when you're just practicing beginning to end to just kind of let your mind wander after maybe the first couple lines. And so I really believe in this. Other ways to learn pieces, if you're learning something that doesn't have too much rubato in it, which is kind of that give and take of time. You find it a lot in Chopin's music. Even in that case, you can still practice a lot with the metronome. I like to start from a really slow tempo, right hand until perfect, left hand until perfect, hands together until perfect. A lot of people cringe when I say perfect, but there's no need to cringe when you're in an under-tempo practice session, because you better get it perfect when you're practicing. At least this is what I always tell myself. You better get it perfect, Josh, if you're going to be able to play at full tempo, close to perfect, or as good as possible. So making sure you have those little checkpoints along the way, right hand, left hand together, slow to fast with metronome. About the metronome, I usually like to go up by 4 to 5 notches at a time, depending on how much progress I need. If I'm going like metronome marking 50 to 200, if I'm really doing it, I may go up by increments of 10. But just keep it minimal, because you want to make sure you're checking off a perfect practice tempo each time. You don't want to have mistakes when you're slow, because then you'll have even more when you're fast. So I hope this has been beneficial. I know these methods work. I've seen them work again and again for myself and for a lot of my students. And so if anyone has any questions, please email me. My email is josh@joshwrightpiano.com, and I'd be happy to answer whatever questions you might have.